Sometimes, the deepest heartbreak doesn't come from strangers or enemies. It comes from the people you love the most. This is the story of a mother, a son she raised with her whole heart, and a daughter-in-law who slowly, quietly, turned that son against the woman who gave him everything. It's a story about manipulation, about blind trust, and about a love that almost didn't survive. So sit back, relax, and let me take you into a journey that will touch your heart. A journey called The Day a Daughter-in-Law Turned the Son Against His Own Mother. Margaret Williams had spent her entire life loving her only son, Michael. After her husband died suddenly when Michael was just 8 years old, the world became heavier, colder, but Margaret refused to let her son feel that weight. She took double shifts at the diner, cleaned offices at night, and still woke up early every morning to make him breakfast. She was tired, exhausted, actually, but whenever Michael walked into the kitchen rubbing his sleepy eyes and saying, "Morning, Mom," she felt her heart fill again. She packed his lunches with little handwritten notes inside. She sat in the front row at every school play, clapping louder than the rest of the crowd. She attended every basketball game, cheering even when he missed every shot. Michael always told her, "Mom, one day I'll make it all worth it. I'll give you the life you should have had." And for a long time, he truly meant those words. But hearts change quietly. And sometimes, because of someone who enters your life when you least expect it. Everything shifted the day he met Ashley Turner. Ashley was stunning, perfect hair, perfect clothes, perfect smile. She was the kind of woman who made people stop and stare when she walked into a room. And she was charming, the kind of charming that looked real, but wasn't. When Michael introduced her to his mother for the first time, Margaret's face lit up. She hugged Ashley warmly and said, "Welcome to the family, sweetheart." She cooked her favorite meals, cleaned the house before every visit, planned little surprises, just trying to make her son's girlfriend feel loved. But Ashley never wanted Margaret close. She pretended beautifully, laughing at Margaret's jokes in front of Michael, complimenting her cooking, calling her "Mom," in a sweet, sugary voice. But the moment Michael stepped away from the room, her expression would drop, cold, sharp, irritated. One time, while washing the dishes, Margaret smiled at her kindly and said, "I'm really glad Michael found someone who makes him happy." Ashley didn't smile back. She simply replied, "We'll see." There was something in her tone that made a chill crawl up Margaret's spine. A warning Margaret didn't understand yet. A warning that this woman wasn't here to join the family. She was here to take Michael away from it. It started small. So small that if Margaret hadn't known better, she might have missed it. One quiet evening, after dinner, Michael sat down across from her at the kitchen table. He looked uneasy, drumming his fingers on the wood like he was afraid of what he was about to say. "Mom," he began softly, "Ashley feels like you don't like her." Margaret froze mid-wipe, the dish towel still in her hand. "What?" she whispered. "Michael, I adore her. Why would she think that?" Michael only shrugged, avoiding her eyes. "I don't know." She said she feels judged. Judged. The word hit Margaret like a small stone to the chest. She had done nothing but welcome that girl with open arms. But Michael looked uncomfortable, so she didn't push it. She forced a smile, nodded, and said she would try to be even warmer. But in her heart, a tiny sting of confusion settled. Unfortunately, the comments didn't stop. A week later, as Michael stopped by after work, he sighed heavily while slipping off his jacket. "Mom," he said, "did you tell Ashley she cooks too much pasta?" Margaret turned sharply, nearly dropping the pot in her hands. "What?" "Michael, I never said that." Her voice shook slightly. I told her she makes wonderful meals. That's it. She seemed really hurt, he muttered. And there it was. That same tension. That same quiet doubt in his eyes. Margaret felt her breath shorten. She didn't know what scared her more, that Ashley was lying, or that Michael was starting to believe it. But it didn't stop there. Little comments, little stories, little hints of, your mom said this, or, your mom thinks that. Ashley was slowly planting seeds. Invisible at first, but growing, creeping, tightening around Michael's heart like vines. Seeds of doubt, seeds of distance, seeds that pushed Michael away from the one woman who had loved him more than anything in the world. Margaret didn't understand the full picture yet, but she felt it in her bones. Something was wrong, badly, painfully wrong, and whatever it was, Ashley was at the center of it. One cool, quiet evening, Margaret decided to surprise Michael and Ashley with a homemade lasagna. It wasn't just any lasagna. This was the recipe she had perfected over years, Michael's favorite. Layered with extra cheese and fresh herbs from her little garden. She imagined the three of them sitting together at the table, laughing, enjoying a simple family dinner, just like old times. She walked up to their apartment door, lasagna carefully balanced in her hands. She took a deep breath and knocked. The door swung open, and there was Ashley. Her smile was polite, practiced, but her eyes were cold and sharp, like a blade hidden behind porcelain. Oh, Margaret. We weren't expecting anyone, she said, her tone flat, almost forced. Margaret returned the smile, though it faltered slightly. I made lasagna. I thought we could all have dinner together. Ashley stepped aside just enough to let her in, but her voice was clipped. You know, we actually prefer to eat alone. It's our couple time. Margaret's hands trembled. The lasagna felt heavier all of a sudden. I understand. I just wanted to spend time with my son and you, she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. Ashley leaned closer, her face almost touching Margaret's, and her tone sharpened like a knife. You're suffocating him. Let him live his own life. Margaret froze. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She felt a cold lump settle in her stomach. Before she could gather her thoughts, Michael appeared behind Ashley. He looked at his mother, then at Ashley, and said cautiously, Mom, what's going on? Ashley's entire demeanor changed in a heartbeat. She tilted her head, feigning vulnerability, and a fake tear glistened in the corner of her eye. She keeps showing up, Michael, she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound real. I'm trying so hard, but she makes me feel like I'm not good enough. She's always there, always judging. I can't breathe. Margaret's heart dropped. Her chest tightened. She opened her mouth to defend herself. Ashley, that's not true. But Michael raised a hand, cutting her off. Mom, please. Stop causing drama. Drama. The word pierced her like an arrow straight to her heart. It wasn't just a word. It was the final blow from her own son. Her son. The boy she had carried in her heart every single day of his life. She set the lasagna down carefully on the table, the warmth of it useless against the chill creeping into her soul. She turned quietly, walking toward the door. Not a word, not a plea, nothing. That night, Margaret sat on her bed, staring at the dim light in her room. The house was quiet, but her heart was screaming. She cried for the first time in years, not out of anger, not even from shock, but from a deep, aching sorrow that comes from being misunderstood by the person you love most. She thought about every sacrifice she had made for Michael, every sleepless night, every cheer at his games, every packed lunch and little note she had left in his bag. All of it seemed meaningless now. All of it seemed invisible. And for the first time, Margaret realized just how carefully Ashley had worked to plant seeds of doubt, seeds of distance, seeds that had now grown between her and her son. Seeds that threatened to destroy a bond that nothing in the world, had ever broken before. Her tears fell quietly, silently, but the ache in her chest would stay for much longer. Because sometimes, love isn't enough to protect you from the ones you trust most. Ashley's control over Michael didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, quiet tightening, like vines creeping around a tree. Every day, Margaret felt the distance grow a little more. Michael visited less. Calls became shorter, less frequent, almost mechanical. Sunday dinners, once a sacred ritual filled with laughter, stories, and hugs, were skipped or forgotten entirely. And whenever Margaret tried to reach out, Ashley always had an excuse ready. She's busy. She's sleeping. We're out. She's sick. Margaret knew the truth in her heart. It wasn't that Michael didn't want to see her. It wasn't that he was too busy. It was Ashley. Ashley who whispered doubts into his ear every single night. Ashley who painted Margaret as controlling. Suffocating, too. Involved. And slowly, Michael believed her. One chilly evening, Margaret saw Michael's car pull up in the driveway. Her heart jumped. Maybe things were changing. Maybe this was the chance to talk, to reconnect. She opened the door as he stepped inside, carrying a small box of belongings he'd left at her house years ago. Michael, hi, she said softly, forcing a smile. I didn't expect you today. I'm glad to see you. He nodded, eyes avoiding hers. Margaret's chest tightened as she swallowed her nervousness. Michael, did I do something wrong? You barely come around anymore, she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Michael sighed, dragging his hands down his face as if the weight of the world was pressing on him. Mom, you're too much sometimes. Ashley, she feels uncomfortable around you. Margaret's stomach twisted painfully. Since when? I've only ever... Mom, please, Michael interrupted. His voice tense now. Don't make this harder than it already is. He didn't hug her. He didn't glance back. He left. Margaret's heart shattered in slow motion. She stood at the doorway, watching her son walk away, and for the first time, she understood the full scope of Ashley's manipulation. Her son, the boy she had raised, cared for, sacrificed everything for, was slipping through her fingers. Not because he didn't love her, but because someone else had convinced him to turn away. Margaret closed the door gently, feeling the cold weight of emptiness settle in her chest. She sank onto the couch, staring at the quiet room. For the first time, she realized that love alone wasn't enough to protect you from betrayal, even from the people you trust the most. And somewhere deep inside, she made a silent vow. She would not give up on Michael. She would fight for him, even if it meant waiting in the shadows while Ashley tried to rewrite the story of their lives. Because a mother's love was not something you could erase with whispers or lies. Months passed, but Margaret's heart never stopped aching. She went through the motions of daily life, cooking, cleaning, tending to her small garden, but every phone call she ignored from Michael. Every missed Sunday dinner left a hollow ache that no one could fill. She had learned to live with the pain, but that didn't mean it hurt any less. Then one evening, everything changed. Michael's phone rang. It wasn't a call from her. It never was anymore. It was from Mrs. Carter, the neighbor who had always checked in on Margaret. Michael, you need to come quick, Mrs. Carter's voice trembled. Your mom, she fainted outside. The ambulance just took her to Mercy Hospital. Michael's blood ran cold. His hands shook on the steering wheel as he slammed the car into drive. Every red light blurred past him. He didn't care about speed limits or traffic. Nothing mattered except reaching his mother. When he arrived at the hospital, his heart sank. Margaret lay in a hospital bed, pale and weak, her face almost translucent under the harsh fluorescent lights. The steady beep of the heart monitor sounded too loud in the silence. A nurse approached gently. "She's been under a lot of stress, poor diet, emotional strain," she explained softly, almost apologetically. Michael's stomach twisted painfully. "What kind of emotional strain?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The nurse hesitated. She kept saying, "I don't want to bother my son. She's worried about you. About being a burden." Those words hit Michael harder than anything he had ever felt. He sank into the chair beside her bed, took her frail hand into his, and whispered, "Mom, I'm here. I'm right here. Don't worry anymore." Margaret's eyelids fluttered. Slowly, she opened them. "Michael, you came?" she whispered, her voice fragile and shaking. Tears brimmed in Michael's eyes. He leaned closer. "Mom, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I should have seen. I should have listened. I should have never let anyone make me doubt you." Margaret smiled faintly, the faintest glimmer of warmth in her tired eyes. "I thought, maybe I did something wrong," she murmured, her hand weakly squeezing his. "No, Mom," he whispered, choking back a sob. "I was wrong. I let someone turn me against you. I let Ashley's words poison my heart." Tears ran down Margaret's cheeks as she struggled to speak. "I never asked for much, Michael, just your time, your love, your attention." Michael broke down completely, burying his head against her frail hand. I promise no one will ever come between us again," he whispered into her trembling fingers. Margaret's eyes glistened with tears of relief and love. Her son had come back. Her son had remembered who truly loved him unconditionally. Her son had finally seen the truth. In that quiet hospital room, surrounded by the soft hum of machines and the distant footsteps of nurses, Margaret held his hand tightly and whispered, "I forgive you, Michael, because a mother's love never fades." And for the first time in months, Michael felt the weight lift from his heart. He understood now. Love could be tested. It could be twisted. It could even be almost lost. But a mother's love was forever. A few days after Margaret's hospitalization, Ashley arrived at the hospital. Her heels clicked sharply in the sterile hallway, and her carefully rehearsed expression of concern barely hid the irritation simmering beneath the surface. "Oh my God, Mrs. Williams, are you okay?" she asked, her voice high-pitched and dramatic. Margaret didn't respond. She lay in the hospital bed, her eyes steady, unshaken. She didn't want to give Ashley the satisfaction of a reaction. Michael stood beside his mother, his fists clenched at his sides. His jaw was tight, and his eyes were ice. "Enough, Ashley," he said, his voice low, calm, but filled with a sharp authority that made her falter. Ashley blinked, taken aback. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Michael took a step closer, leaning in just enough so she could feel the intensity radiating off him. "I know what you've been doing," he said, his tone deadly serious. Ashley laughed nervously, trying to mask her panic. "You're being ridiculous, Michael. I don't know what you're talking about," she said. Michael shook his head slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. "I saw the texts. All of them." Ashley froze. Her smile faltered, replaced by a flash of fear. "What texts?" she stammered, her voice losing its usual confidence. "The ones where you told your friend that my mother is pathetic, clingy, and that you were trying to distance me from her so you could finally control the house." Ashley's face drained of color. Her lips trembled. You weren't supposed to. Get out, Michael said, his voice hard now, leaving no room for argument. Ashley's mouth fell open in shock. Michael, get out, he repeated, louder this time, pointing firmly toward the door. His eyes were fierce, unwavering, full of a strength she had never seen in him before. Strength born from love, clarity, and finally seeing the truth. Ashley grabbed her purse hastily, her carefully constructed mask of innocence gone, replaced with raw panic. She didn't speak another word. She didn't look back. The door clicked shut behind her, echoing in the quiet hospital room. A long silence followed. Then Michael exhaled deeply and turned to his mother, who was watching him with tired, yet proud eyes. Mom, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I let her manipulate me. Let her turn me against you. Margaret reached out weakly, her hand trembling as she took his. It's okay, Michael. What matters is that you see it now. You're here. You came back. Tears ran down his face as he held her hand tightly. I promise, Mom, no one will ever come between us again. For the first time in months, the room felt lighter. No tension. No lies. No manipulation. Only the quiet, powerful bond between a mother and her son. Margaret smiled faintly, a tear rolling down her cheek. Her heart, though worn and weary, felt full again. Her son had returned. The love she had never stopped giving had finally been recognized. And in that moment, Michael understood something he had forgotten for far too long. No one could ever love him the way his mother did. No one could ever replace the bond they shared. Michael sat beside his mother in the quiet living room. The soft hum of the evening filled the space, but neither of them spoke at first. Margaret reached out and gently took his hand in hers, her fingers trembling slightly but full of warmth. Michael, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying a weight that made him pause. Don't hate her. Just learn from this. Learn from what almost destroyed us. Michael looked down, shame washing over him. His shoulders slumped. I don't understand how you can still feel that way, Mom. After everything, after all the lies, the manipulation. Margaret smiled through her tears, her eyes glistening in the dim light. A mother's heart doesn't break, Michael, she said gently. It bends. It waits. It forgives. Even when forgiveness seems impossible. Michael's throat tightened. He bent forward and wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if he would never let go again. This time, she felt it. The love he felt for her. Not a love shadowed by manipulation. Not a love coerced by guilt. Not a love stolen by someone else. But real, pure, undeniable love. They stayed like that for a long time, letting the silence speak for them. The bond that had been strained, tested, and almost broken, slowly knitted itself stronger than ever. Over the next weeks and months, Michael rebuilt everything he had lost with his mother. Sunday dinners filled with laughter, stories, and shared memories. Long talks on the porch about life, love, and regrets. Movie nights with blankets and popcorn, just like when he was a child. Simple, I love yous, that had been missing far too long. Trust, the kind that no manipulation could ever shake again. He learned the most important lesson life sometimes teaches too late. No one on earth will ever love you the way a mother does. He had almost lost her. He had almost let someone else rewrite the story of their lives. But fate had given him one last chance. And this time, he didn't waste it. Margaret held his hand, feeling the steady beat of his heart against hers. She whispered softly, almost to herself, some lessons are learned in time. And some love never dies. And in that quiet, golden evening, mother and son sat together, stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever before. Their hearts full, their bond unbreakable, their love eternal. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, please give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Your support helps me share more stories that inspire, move, and connect us. And I'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell me what you thought.